Some people think quitting their bad habit is impossible. Turns out, they're right, because it's not about quitting, it's about replacing. And that is where Fume comes in. Fume is an award-winning flavored air device. There's no nicotine. There's no tobacco. It is just natural flavored air, and it actually satisfies. It's a simple swap. Physiology shows that stopping a bad habit cold turkey is hard on the brain. Fume works by replacing your hand-to-mouth fixation, calming nervous tension through fidgeting, and distracting you from your bad habit with delicious flavor. Fume has lots of flavors to choose from, like orange vanilla and crisp mint. With flavored air, you can satisfy your oral fixation through a passive diffusion system that utilizes no electronics, vapor, or combustion. Fume fills the void that ditching a bad habit can leave. So you'll still have something satisfying to reach for. The best part, it's 100% nicotine-free and backed by doctors in the US. Go to tryfume.com/Chael or scan the QR code and use code Chael to get your free Fume topper when you order your journey pack today, or just click on the link below. Joe Rogan, commentator, the UFC, and he's got a podcast. And I don't think this is brand new, by the way. I think this is a clip that came to me because I remember when Gordon did Joe Rogan. So I'm not sharing for you like this is breaking news. Perhaps just breaking news to me. But I got quite a, are you YouTube people? Within the algorithm, the things that you go in and search for, YouTube will then kind of like learn your likes and just send it to you naturally. And it is such an impressive algorithm, at least for my psychology. I mean, they've got me down perfectly. The stuff they send me is exactly what I want to watch at any rate. You get sent a little piece, little 30-second piece. And Gordon Ryan is telling Joe Rogan, Jon Jones had a very interesting corner for his fight at Madison Square Garden. It should have been headline news, truly. Jon Jones had a band of misfits in his corner for a main event world title at Madison Square Garden. Now, when you are in Jon Jones's spot, every single fight could be your last. We don't actually know as a community where Jon's mindset, with that level of where that would be if he fell. We don't actually know. We don't know if he's one of those guys that will come back as a contender and just try again. We don't know that. It's a spot that he's never been in. He doesn't have to be doing this. So it's very literal by me to say that each fight could be his last, because if that would have been his last, if he would have gone down to Stipe, I guarantee the band of misfits that made up that corner would be discussed. Now, I'm not putting them down when I tell you band of misfits. It was just a group of guys. It was a group of stone cold badasses that Jon liked and respected. There's not many people out there that Jon Jones likes and respects. So he goes and finds the best jiu-jitsu player in the world. Well, Jon respects that. He respects the best in the world. Boom, you got a spot in the corner, just like that. Not you're training me and you're coming up with strategies and we're spending massive times together and you're molding and working with my mind and my physicality. You are the best grappler in the world. There's only one. That's what we do over here. Here's a spot for you. Okay. Well, went and found the best grappler in the world, best wrestler. Went and found the heavyweight wrestling Olympic champion of Earth. Here's a spot for you. And it's very interesting because there is a commonality with all the guys that fought on the card that night and every other night. That there is a commonality that they will put someone in the corner who they respect. And by the way, that respect was gained by that person whipping their ass somewhere along the way. Maybe they were a younger guy, an up-and-comer. Maybe it was, kind of the older guy at the gym. Whatever the scenario, That's a very common thing, to put somebody in your corner that you respect, and they got that respect either because you saw them whipping somebody's ass or they whipped your ass. How do you do that if you're Jon? I mean, how do you do that if you never had your ass whipped? So now you got to break it down into categories, right? The overall king is himself. So now he's got to find one. I mean, it's very interesting from that standpoint. I remember watching him go out there, and I remember thinking, there was other people, though. I don't want to disrespect, right, the head of the corner. But I do remember thinking from my own standpoint, who is the alpha in that situation? And I believe that would be Gordon. I believe that if Gordon and Gable, they were on a room and they start discussing and telling Jon Jones about different positions and where he needs to go, that Gordon would probably let Gable go as far as he wanted him to go, and at some point, Gordon would speak up, and if he did, I imagine Gable would stand down. I imagine that. So, either way, it was a very interesting corner, which does tie in to part of the Jon Jones story. Again, this story would have been told had he lost. Had he lost, it would have been very clear. Jon left his gym. And it wasn't by choice. But he didn't leave Albuquerque, who, by the way, doesn't have a whole bunch of gyms. So it is very interesting, where is Jon training? So then we start getting clips of Jon that are emerging online. Jon's sharing them with us through Instagram and in his beautiful facility. But one thing that you will notice is there's nobody else in the facility. There is Jon and a partner. There is Jon and two partners. There is not a MMA class going on around him. So it does become interesting. And that's a hard walk for anybody. To stay disciplined, stay organized, stay on top of it, push yourself when you are having to take a leadership position within your own camp. In fact, I can't think of anyone else that has done it successfully. Tiger's got a coach. LeBron's got a coach. Mayweather's got a coach. I mean, it's a very hard situation. And had Jon lost, it would have been a bigger part of the story because he won. Everybody just moved on. But they should have. It's a fascinating thing that these guys pieced together. All right, so Gordon's telling the story to Joe. And Gordon says, Joe, for the last 20 minutes in the locker room, for the last 20 minutes before we walked out to fight Stipe at Madison Square Garden for the championship of the world, Jon stopped doing or focusing on MMA and started working on, I guess we're going to call it the Trump dance. And Jon did the dance after, I can't do it, but he did the dance in the ring, and they even cut it off and they put it on CNN and Fox News. It was like this big deal that Jon was doing this. I know I'm not quite doing it, guys, but he was doing the dance. And Gordon said for 20 minutes, and it was the last 20 minutes. It was the last thing they talked about. It was the last thing before the last thing. It was all that they were talking about as they went to the ring. And Gordon said that he and Gable were just as guilty of Jon, that Jon's over there trying to practice the dance, and they begin watching the dance on a video, and they begin critiquing and teaching and showing, no, hey, you got to have more arm, you got to have more hip, and the whole corner is just working on this dance. And your last words are a big deal. They will ask you in court. They will ask you at the gallows before they hang you what your last words are, because they're important. And Gordon was just telling a story of the band of misfits that made up that one of the most destructive and effective teams ever working on a dance. Joe Rogan thought it was funny. I thought maybe you'd think it was funny.